People magazine, the Amsterdam News, the Slave Narratives of Texas, edited by Tyler and Murphy, and my cousin, Angela Jennings of St. Kofa Traveling Museum, have informed my research and talk about Juneteenth and Black History tonight. And John, there's gonna be a place for you too.
I love it.
Well, June 19th is known as Freedom Day, Emancipation Day, Juneteenth, June 19th. It's a combination of those two, June and the 19th, forming Juneteenth. It was on that day in 1865 that Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger made their way to Texas, where the last of the nation's slaves were held. He announced in Galveston that the Civil War had ended and they were finally free. President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation had become official more than 2.5 years earlier on January 1st, 1863. But Texas's slaves were the last to know. Lincoln's emancipation was issued as the country was in the throes of the Civil War, leaving few soldiers available to enforce the president's executive order. Southern slaveholders were not ready to release their property. However, with the surrender of Confederate General Robert E. Lee officially ending the war and the arrival of Granger's regiment, Texas was forced to finally free its slaves. But why did it take more than 2.5 years? There are 3 theories that have been handed down over the years. The most popular is that a messenger sent to deliver the news was murdered on his way to Texas. But why would a single messenger be sent to deliver such an important order? Order number 3. Another theory is that the news was deliberately withheld to maintain the workforce on Texas plantations. Still another story is that the federal troops purposefully sat on the news to allow plantation owners to harvest one last crop before enforcing Lincoln's executive order. Susan Merritt, a liberated woman who was interviewed shortly after her emancipation in Texas, said, "I heard about the freedom in September, and they were picking cotton. And a white man rode up to Massa's house on a big white horse, and the houseboy told Massa a man wanted to see him, and he hollered, 'All right, stranger.' It was a government man, and he had a big book and a bunch of papers and said why Massa hadn't turned the niggers loose. Massa said he was trying to get the crop out, and he told Massa to have the slaves in. Uncle Stephen blew the cow horn, which they used to call in to eat, and all the niggers came running because the horn meant come to the big house, quick. That man read that paper telling us we were free, but Massa made us work several months after that. He said he got 20 acres of land and a mule, that we would get that. But we didn't get it. Lots of niggers were killed after freedom, because the slaves in Harrison County were turned loose right after freedom, and those in Rusk County weren't. But they heard about it and ran away to freedom in Harrison County, and their owners had them bushwhacked. Now you use your imagination to figure that out. They were shot down. You could see lots of niggas hanging to trees in Sabine Bottom right after freedom, 'cause they caught them swimming across the Sabine River and they shot them. There sure are gonna be lots of souls crying against them in judgment. Now, General Granger read General Order Number 3. The people of Texas informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the executive of the United States that all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. Former slaves were overjoyed while their former masters were in shock. Even though they had nowhere to go, newly freed blacks quickly left the plantations. Many headed north to start new lives, while others headed to the neighboring states of Louisiana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. Juneteenth marked the celebration of long-awaited freedom and would become one of our most joyous and important cultural events, with many elements of those early celebrations still a part of our modern-day festivities. Now, my cousin Angela tells me of Sankofa Traveling Museum that another thing that could have happened was a black regiment. And this is where you come in.
You already brought me when you said Russ County.
You gotta help me. You gotta help me sometime. A black regiment was on a boat going down south on the coast, and there was a storm. They didn't even mean to stop there. Got off the ship, and their major, their general, didn't even get off the ship. And it was the regiment that came, and they tacked the order onto the door of a local church, a black church. And it was the minister of that church that read the order to his congregants, and then the word spread. Now that's what I heard. We're going to talk about that. Getting the party started, because the main focus of Juneteenth celebration is on education and self-improvement, but what's a celebration without family, fun, and, yes, food? Everyone back then brought a dish to share, but you couldn't have a Juneteenth celebration without strawberry soda and a barbecue pit full of pork. Whew. Lamb and beef. You got invited to the barbecue. You got invited to the cookout. In Texas and some other southern states, the traditional drink on Juneteenth is the Big Red Soda. This variety of cream soda is a sweet, soft drink flavored with orange and lemon oils and vanilla. It is available in different flavors with or without caffeine and sugar for those who are watching that. Besides the chance to relax and catch up with friends and family, there were a host of activities to enjoy, like horseback riding and fishing. Juneteenth was also an occasion to dress up. During early celebrations, former slaves threw their ragged clothes into the creeks and rivers and wore new garments that had been taken from their former plantations. Juneteenth celebrations were usually held in rural areas or on church grounds. Eventually, as blacks became landowners, special areas were dedicated for their celebrations. One of the first land purchases for Juneteenth was organized by the Reverend Jack Yates. This former slave and pastor organized a fundraiser to purchase Emancipation Park in Houston, Texas. And in 1898, Booker T. Washington Park in Mexico, Texas, became an official Juneteenth celebration site, with some 20,000 people visiting in 1 week in one of the state's largest celebrations. Juneteenth remained popular and continued to thrive and grow, but by the early 1900s, there was a decline, mostly due to economic and cultural changes. Hard times forced many blacks to head north to find work. Urban life made it hard to celebrate unless the date fell on a weekend. The importance of Granger's announcement on June 19th became buried even deeper when July 4th was established as the Day of National Independence. But Frederick Douglass had something to say about that. He said in his famous oratory speech, "What to the slave is the 4th of July?" It's not only a brilliant work of oratory, it speaks to our every frustration spurred by the gap between the ideals of the United States and the reality that we witness every single day. Sound familiar? The Poor People's Campaign in Washington, D.C. in 1968 led to a renewed interest in Juneteenth. So most of us, we just call that the March on Washington. Many of those attended the historic march returned home eager to celebrate black culture. Juneteenth celebrations began happening in places where they had never happened before. And today, Juneteenth is celebrated throughout the country as a full or partial state holiday, with local and national organizers picking up the mantle of promoting African American history and culture. Today, Juneteenth is a national holiday in the United States. Hallelujah. It was officially designated as a federal holiday by President Joe Biden in June of 2021. This means that it is a legal public holiday observed by the federal government, and many states have also adopted it as a state holiday as well. Now, when President Joe Biden officially made Juneteenth a federal holiday in 2021, there was one person in the audience for whom the moment was the culmination of a lifelong effort. They called her the grandmother of Juneteenth, Miss Opal Lee. Lee, who is from Fort Worth, Texas, sat in the front row as Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act into law. She also received a standing ovation from the crowd at the behest of the president, who called her an incredible woman. "I got so many different feelings all gurgling up in here," Lee said, now about 98 years old. She told the CBS affiliate KTVT at the time, "I don't know what to call them all. I'm so delighted to know that suddenly we've got a Juneteenth. It's not a Texas thing or a black thing, it is an American thing." Now every state has at some point passed a resolution recognizing Juneteenth, at least as a day of observance, even those that do not count Juneteenth among their official public holidays. We wait a little bit. An observance is a day of awareness that isn't accompanied by a day off, but we wait a little bit, just like our weather. In fact, Except for Texas, all states that currently recognize Juneteenth as a public holiday commemorated it as a day of observance, years before it became an official state holiday anyway. Florida, Oklahoma, Minnesota were the first states outside of Texas to commemorate Juneteenth as a day of observance in the 1990s. The flag. Just pass out. The flag uses the colors red, white, and blue of the American flag. Featured prominently in the center of the flag is a bursting star. Running through the center of the flag horizontally is an arc that is meant to symbolize the new horizon of opportunity for Black people. On June 19th, take a moment to remember our ancestors and the price they paid for the freedom we enjoy today. The freedom we're trying to instill, the freedom we're trying to hold on to. Remember our great history of culture, courage, and triumph. Juneteenth is a day to celebrate family, friends, culture, and yes, community.